Have you ever had a moment where you saw through everything? The lies, the noise, the distractions, and for a second it all made sense. But then came the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the isolating kind. Because clarity, it turns out, can be a lonely thing. Most people believe that understanding leads to peace. But the truth, the clearer your vision becomes, the more difficult it gets to exist in a world built on illusion. Why is that? Let's start here. Society doesn't run on truth. It runs on agreement, on shared assumptions, on silent contracts that say, let's not ask too many questions. When you break those unspoken rules, when you dig deeper, you don't just threaten ideas. You threaten the foundation people stand on. This is why thinkers, questioners, and visionaries often find themselves alone. Not because they're antisocial, not because they don't care, but because they've wandered too far from the script. And the world doesn't reward deviation. It punishes it. The human brain is wired for survival, not truth. From birth, we're trained to belong, to fit in, to follow the group. For most of history, being accepted meant staying alive. And so, the mind favors certainty over complexity, comfort over confrontation. When you question widely accepted norms, you activate a silent alarm in others. You're not just thinking differently. You're shaking the cage, and most people don't want to see the bars. Philosophers like Kierkegaard and Camus warned of this. The more deeply you reflect, the more absurd the world can seem. You notice the contradictions, the repetition, the hollow goals, and you start to wonder, why do we keep playing along? But that awareness comes at a cost. Try talking about existential doubt at a dinner party, or bringing up mortality in small talk. You'll see how quickly the room changes. This isn't just social awkwardness, it's cognitive dissonance. People instinctively resist what makes them uncomfortable, even if it's true. Especially if it's true. Psychologists call this cognitive closure, the desire to settle on a belief quickly and avoid ambiguity. But deep thinkers? They live in ambiguity. They sit with questions, wrestle with uncertainty, and often reject easy answers. That makes them hard to be around, not because they're negative, but because they refuse to pretend. And here's where it gets darker. The more you understand people, the harder they are to love blindly. You see their patterns, their contradictions, their pain. You understand their behaviors, but that understanding can make connection feel artificial. How do you pretend everything's fine when you know it's not? This is the paradox. Awareness brings wisdom, but it also brings sorrow. You start to see life as it is, not as it's sold to us. You realize how much of society runs on fear, on distraction, on denial. And once you've seen it, it's hard to unsee. But this doesn't mean deep thinkers are doomed to loneliness. It just means they need to find different kinds of connections. Ones built not on convenience, but on resonance. You might not belong everywhere, but somewhere someone else is thinking the same strange thoughts, reading the same obscure books, asking the same dangerous questions. And when you meet them, something shifts. The silence becomes a signal. The loneliness becomes a language. You realize that clarity doesn't isolate you forever. It just filters your world until only what's real remains. So if you've ever felt like your thoughts take you too far, if you've ever been told you overthink or dig too deep, know this: you're not broken, you're just awake. And yes, it can be heavy, but it's also rare and powerful, because in a world that hides from itself, seeing clearly is an act of rebellion.